Local school boards have been increasingly subject to state and federal mandates. Do school board members have an obligation to think independently about whether those mandates are good for kids? If so, what should a school board member do if he or she concludes that those mandates are not in the best interest of the kids or are contrary to the community's values? So why don't we go down here? You got the question?
Yeah.
Come on up here and talk.
All right. Well, the state mandates, the money that is state mandated is just that. It is mandated towards a certain budget or a certain program or whatever the state deems. Now, if we choose if we want that money, we have to choose as a district to use that money accordingly. Now, if it doesn't fall within our lines of what we believe our district should be doing, then don't accept the money. But that's not usually what we'll do. We will take the money and we will spend it and deem it towards that area. Does it mean that we could use some creative financing? Maybe. Maybe we can choose another program to spend it on. I don't know, that's something that we can look at. But mandated money is that, mandated money. Okay, Richard, take it.
I should have said, how about we target 2 minutes? Mr. Timer back there.
Sounds good. This is kind of interesting. I spoke a little bit about this a little bit ago when I talked about the allocations. So I agree with Bobby. Money that comes from the state always comes with strings attached. The problem is, and I don't have in 2 minutes, I can't give a long history lesson about how we got here in Minnesota. But basically the problem that we have though is the state is mandating how we spend percentages of our budget, but they're not funding it. So what happens is we turn around and we have to ask Joe Public just to meet the mandate for extra money for a referendum that was supposed to be designed to get extras. And so hopefully Joe Public does their part and they say, okay, if I give you more money, what are you going to get for it? And the answer, unfortunately, is you're going to get the status quo because we needed to just fund the mandates that the state is putting down on us. So truthfully, although it's hard for a member of the board to do this, one of the things that we need to look at is, one, we need to advocate for people that are going onto the state. Hopefully we have some board members that will be making it there. That's not an official endorsement, but it's pretty close. Okay, so hopefully they don't forget that we need local control of our budget. And if we don't get that at the state level, then we need to look at some legal actions. Because I think it's about time that we make an argument and say, look, this interferes with our ability to provide a solid education for students in our district. There are unique needs to Rochester that the state's standard allocations don't address. And we need more local control of those funds. And I think that there's actually some good civil rights precedents there that you could make a good argument for. That's a long road. And hopefully one we don't have to go down, because I'm fully confident that our folks at the state level will step up to the plate.
Yeah. Okay, Bill, same question.
They've hit most of the issues there really well. The other problem is that there are two different types of mandates you get. There are ones where they say, you have to do this, and we're only giving you 60% of the money to do it, in which case you end up raising money to fund the other part of what they're saying you have to do. The other type are the ones where they say, if you want extra money, if you want to do this, we'll also give you this extra money. And those are the ones where we have some choice in the matter. That's where you have to decide, is this worth doing? Because inevitably we're going to end up funding a part of that. They never give us any mandates where they say we're going to fully fund that for you. So ultimately, if we give the choice in the matter, we need to decide, is this money worth spending? Because not only are we going to have to take either out of the general budget or raise funds for the additional portion that we're going to be responsible for, ultimately those tax dollars that are coming back to us are our tax dollars. So if it's something where we have a choice in whether or not we do it, that's something where we do need to examine, is it really necessary, do we need it, is it providing value? So.
Thank you.
When he left, and the school district paid for the shipping of his desk. And do you think it would, would any of you allow it to happen again?
Okay, so Greg,
Well, that's a loaded question. Well, as for the desk, I can't answer that. That would have to be the current school board, and I think they're probably under some legal limitations on discussing that particular topic. As for advocating for the settlement, my personal opinion would have been no. There were things that happened within this district by both the superintendent, the school board, that needed to be brought to light, and all we did was sweep it underneath the carpet and let somebody else deal with it. It is time as an elected official to take ownership of the issues that they caused, or that we caused as individuals. And ultimately, who's responsible for making a poor decision? If I make that poor decision, I expect everybody in this room to call me and let me know about it. That's kind of my answer to a short answer to that question. I mean, the school board has some other issues that I'm sure they just can't address, that I'm not privy to. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and I'll throw one in here, and the last 5 years, what has the district done poorly that you would change? There you go.
That's a lot of stuff. Seriously, on both sides. And as a sitting school board member, I think if you're okay with that, I'm going to partially address that. One of the things we did well most recently is hire Mike Munoz and have a contract that has, and Brianna, you can check me if this is correct, how I believe it. It is not a severance. If he quits, runs away, goes somewhere, we will not be covering off costs for Mike Munoz. I think that's done well. I also think the way he came on board, the community embraced him. He went around the community, met with folks. I think that went well. I also think in the hiring process of Mike Munoz, we tried to involve the community. We had a survey, online survey, we handed out surveys. In the paper, I was told that you needed to have a multilingual survey, so we handed out multilingual surveys. All in all, we got several hundred of them back. We got several hundred people's input, and they wanted someone that would communicate, someone that would be transparent, someone that would balance the books, and someone that would give us pride back. And I think in finding Mike Munoz, we got all that, and we have a contract that doesn't pay severance if it doesn't work out for us with Mike. Now, the desk, actually the desk that Mike Munoz sits at is the desk that Dr. Dallemont sat at before. He modified it with a slight riser, and he said, I don't know what the deal is, and we moved on. So I don't know where you're getting it, got shipped, I've seen it and sat here. And I'd encourage you to go see Mike and talk with him if you...
Can I sit at the desk then? Because
You'd have to talk to Mike, he runs a tight ship. Okay, the other good things that I think we've done, and hopefully you've seen at the school board meetings, is pride in a lot of activities. Everything from robotics to what kids do in chess to what kids do in National Merit Scholarships to the number of kids who walk across the stage at the 3 high schools, plus Hawthorne, plus Golden Hill. We've had a lot of kids, and some of the stories, if you go and hear how those kids came through and graduated, those are good and positive stories. Finally, on the good and positive stories, we've got nearly all the contracts signed. There's one left out so far, clerical. Hopefully we'll get that one done. We didn't lay anybody off for finances last year, and we didn't raise your taxes. That's the good. On the could have been better side, we still tax at quite a hefty rate. I do know when I look at my school tax bill, a lot of money comes in. We spend about $8.3 million on transportation. We could probably spend some less there. My colleagues have some great ideas, both the ones that are on the board today and the ones that are hopefully coming in, that would help us reduce the spend as much as we can. The other part that we need to make sure we balance there, though, is the world is changing. I got glasses, and I need them. And I also have a calculator and a computer, and I need them. I just wish they were free. So with that, I hope I covered both of them and a little bit of the desks around.
Thank you.
Can you give us the background on which positions are going to be on the primary ballot in August, and which candidates are going to be on which positions?
Oh, I'll take it. I can answer it. Oh, good. This is good. All right. For the primary election, it will be myself, Richard Hines, and Bill Moe for seat number 1. We are in a primary because there's 3 of us. In seat number 3, we'll have Greg Gallus, Deb Seelinger, and Max Sullivan. for seat number 3, and that will also be in the primary because there's 3 of them. Then in the general election, we have Dan O'Neill and Mr. Kennedy. And they will not be in the primary because there's only 2 of them. Does that answer your question?
Are those 2 men running unopposed? Is that what you're saying?
Unopposed, there's 2 of them.
They're running for the same seat.
They're running for the same seat, so you need to narrow it down to 2. Does that help?
There are 3 seats for which we'll be voting in November.
Yes.
2 of them will have primaries, and the 7th seat will not. The one Dan O'Neill is running in will not have a primary. And Greg's 2 opponents couldn't be here tonight.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Keep the phone. I'm confused as what district am I in?
District?
Yes.
Yep. School board is at large. We are not broken up into districts, wards, or anything. So
So we vote for the whole.
right. So we campaign throughout the whole city. We're not broken up into wards. So, okay. Do you have another one?
No.
Okay.
What experience do you have with complicated budgets? When you're given a 100-page budget for the district, what will be your process to determine if it is a good budget for the system? And I think we'll just go right back to Bobby.
How will I figure out it's a good process for the system?
Here's, if you want to read it, the questions right here. If it's a good budget for the system.
Larry, in all fairness, you should probably start with a different candidate.
All right.
So she
Yes,
doesn't.
sir. So it's this one down here. So experience to have a complicated budget.
First of all, I guess what experience do I have? I was a store manager and worked in retail for quite a number of years. Had to deal with the P&L sheets, the profit and loss sheets for the store, so I had to deal with a number of different categories, had to deal with money coming in from different sources, so did have experience dealing with budget and expenses on that side of things. As far as 100-page budgets go, I love to read. I love to read. So plopping down with a 100-page budget, to me, sounds like kind of fun. It's something that maybe most people wouldn't enjoy doing, but it's another thing that I knew heading into this would not be an issue for me. So sitting through and going through it line by line to see where the money's coming in from, where it's going to, that's not an issue for me. And figuring out, like I say, what we can cut and what we can't. In some cases, some things are mandated. We have to spend the money. That's something that I look forward to. So, just head down the line here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Each of you can get the same question.
My experience with budgets has sort of evolved over time. I've been here in Rochester for about 7 years and involved with the clinic. And when I first started out, I didn't have to worry about budgets. It was nice. Then after a couple of years, I got involved in research, and I thought I had a lot of budget experience because I had in charge of budgets that some were almost $100,000, and that was quite a bit. Today, I handle budgets from the National Institute of Health for multi-center studies that are about, one, for example, is $6.5 million. So there's a little bit of pressure that comes with that. It's not as large, obviously, as the district's budget, but there are 14 different hospitals that are involved. I'm the guy that goes ahead, I take a look, they submit their invoices, I take a look at what the proposed budget was, what they're spending, if it looks like it's reasonable, I oftentimes send them back and say I need a little more information on this. And sometimes, such as recently, it's also my job to say, you know what? I know that we said we're going to give you this much money, but I don't think you're performing well enough to get it. It's a very tough thing to do to other institutions, specifically when they're very good research institutions. But sometimes you have to do that. It's called accountability. And sometimes I even have to say, you know what? You're kind of out, and we're going to find somebody else. We're going to replace you. And programs are kind of like that too, where you have to kind of look and see what's working, what's not. And sometimes you have to say, you know what? You're out, and we're going to use that money for something else. In addition, it's also my responsibility to submit a report to the National Institute of Health and explain why we didn't spend certain money or why we overspent other money. So I'm used to really looking into the details of those budgets. Sometimes when you're a numbers guy, you kind of get stuck with those responsibilities. I'm not really encouraging that. It's kind of stressful. But it's a big part of what you do on a board, too. You look and see why certain programs are overspending or underspending. And while you don't want to micromanage too much, it is your responsibility to understand what's going on in those programs. And so you can't really get past looking at the details. So that's kind of my experience with budgets. We have a $16 million project that we just got, but I think it would be a little inaccurate to say I'm fully responsible for that one. So.
Thank you. And Bobby?
Okay, my personal budget is not anywhere close to $200 million. I was sat on a board for a nonprofit, small nonprofit here in Rochester, and believe me, we weren't at $1 million. So I've managed small budgets. But what I have done for the last 4 years is follow our school board budget. And I have asked the questions why we are spending what we're spending, why we're hiring what we're hiring, why we're doing what we're doing. I like reading the budgets. I like buckets. We have a lot of buckets in our district. We have a lot of different funding streams that goes into our budget. Now, have I personally managed our school budget? No. Do I have personal experience with $200 million? No. But what I do have is the drive and the passion to do it. And I have followed it, and I know what it means, and I'm coming in prepared. Thanks.
What is the Rochester, and I'm not in the Rochester district. What is the, when I read their things in the Rochester paper, yeah, it's all fine and dandy. You got A students, B students, and I just heard how many went on to college. Okay, now you got your C and D students. I don't know what they call them today, but that's what I called them when I went to school and when I was on the board. And so, very few of them are going to go on to college, but they need training like in carpentry, electricians, automobiles, mechanics. There's all kinds of things out here that and we're missing the boat. We're missing the boat. Chatfield on that. Any school board member I ever talked to from other districts, we missed the boat. And I haven't heard anything about that because every student is not an A student. So what is the Rochester School District? How are they addressing the C and D student so they can be productive when they walk out of school? And I'll just give an example. I had a kid that stayed at my place, and he was getting F's and D's. He flunked. I told him to get himself into a technical school for his junior and senior year. And when I looked in the Rochester paper to see what he got for a mark, he took up carpentry. He had an A. Graduated honors. Yet while he's in high school, he was getting F's and D's.
Okay.
So there's
you got a question in there someplace?
There's room for these kids.
Okay. Greg, you want to, I think it's your turn.
Yeah, I'm a bit fuzzy on what the real question is there. You know, we do have a number of programs that we have had to reduce because of the budget. I know Mr. Tronson has a pet project right now of bringing SHOP back into the district because it's important. Because those students who don't achieve academically need another source for them to achieve their personal goals, their personal objectives. I agree that we need to do more in that aspect, but because of the budget cuts we've had to make, we've pretty much eliminated everything. We used to have a great automotive program, doesn't exist anymore. Part of Workforce 2020 talks about some of that's going on with the Chamber. The Chamber also has a program calling the Rochester Promise, which that's what it's called, that it talks about some of those students who fall through the cracks and providing them an opportunity to go to a 2-year college and getting that degree so that they can fulfill and prosper and be part of society and give back. From a district point of view, right now there's nothing short of potentially some of the things that the board's working on as it relates to SHOP. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you.
Well, it partially does. The thing is, you know, as a society, when I saw on the board, I had a number of teachers. I was friends with a lot,
Yep.
put it bluntly. And they said, you know, basically, we're all missing the boat because we worry too much about this A and B student getting good marks. That's fine.
Yep.
There's no problems with that.
Yep.
But this D and C student a lot of them, given a chance, at something other than strictly computers and all this other stuff that we watch. And I read the paper where Rochester's gonna spend $13 million on an iPad or something, I don't understand that stuff, so. But is that going, and that'll help this C&D student a little bit, but not very much.
You know, that depends on how you look at it and your philosophy. Part of the initial plan, at least presented by the board and the superintendent, was to start at an earlier age, to get that student more involved, to provide them a very strong foundation. Is there measurements to prove that as that student progresses through senior high, that it worked? No, there is not. There is no empirical evidence that says, at this point in time, that's the magic bullet. There are a number of remedial programs, I'll call them remedial programs, where students who are not achieving in the district are pulled aside and said, okay, we understand you have a need. Here's an additional program that help you get up to speed. Is it a magic bullet? Absolutely not. But the district has, for quite some time, looked at that gap, shall we say, of students and attempted to address that and help them.
Okay, thank you.
Are you supportive of what I think of as the Michelle Rhee model for running a school system in terms of the philosophy that involves compensating and retaining teachers based on their merit and other aspects like closing schools or doing what's needed to improve overall system performance?
It's a great question. For those of you who may not know Michelle Rhee for a while, she was the district, Washington, D.C. school district leader, if you will, like superintendent of that. Philosophically, there are a lot of good points that mostly stem from leadership and accountability. I mean, I think the principal message that I like that she says is schools that do not perform have to come up and measure up. Now, in a drastic sense, you close them. Now, unfortunately, based on space, we don't have a whole lot of spaces that if we close something here in Rochester, we need to find another place for kids to go. But I think finding a way to make how well we're teaching be part of how we're compensated is an important thing. And I think as we work with Mike and with our teachers to come up with a way that's not all the way to pay for performance, but part of how well teachers perform should have something to do with how they're paid. The last in is the first out is the current methodology. Seniority lists are how you essentially, if you're the last one here, you have to go away. That's written into the contract, and it takes time and conversation to talk about, first, how do we make sure the teachers are qualified and motivated? And then second, for the teachers that are qualified, motivated, and doing an excellent job, how do we make sure that we say thank you to them, both in the thank you the way you and I are used to, but potentially a little extra money. A lot of years ago, my mom was a teacher at a school not too far from here, and they had the ability at that time to, after doing reviews of the teacher, pay him a slight amount of money. Now that was 20 bucks, but it may have motivated that young teacher to perform better. So pay for performance, as Michelle puts out, is a good thing. Leadership and accountability is a good thing, and in those aspects I agree. Unfortunately, in Rochester, I don't think we're at closing the school yet, but I do think we're at leading the school district right, and I believe that's why we brought Mike Munoz in and what we're charging him to do, and why we ask him lots of questions.